Pepsi falling time again. Soon they lead me back to you, my friend. Until we find some time, I'll raise my glass of wine and sing our hearty toast to you, my friend. Feel suspended in this place, but I see it breaking through on your face. So let us find some time, make it last a while, and sing our hardest song for you, my friend. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why do we wait so long? Why do we wait so long? So here you are through a computer port, our busy calendars we just can't sort. So until we find some time, I'll raise my glass of wine and sing a hearty toast to you, my friend. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why do we wait so long? Why do we wait so long? Why? Same old path, same old way home. 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 Before we leave, we've got to find our way back home. Before we leave, we've got to find our way back home. It's a sad path home. Sad path home.
All right. I'm Eddie Troxler, Jazz Chat. You can reach us jazzchat.org. We also will be posted on FATV and my YouTube channel. I have today a good friend. I'm honored to have Keith McLinden, and that was an original song. Hopefully I didn't mess up too bad.
No,
I was
great.
just trying to throw in a little, lead and stuff. So that, do you have that? Is that available like on Spotify yet, or is
Yeah,
it
that's you get that song's called Path Home. It's on Spotify and YouTube and Apple
Cool.
Music and all those.
and with
fun
a whole?
places.
Is it with a whole band or just you? Or?
Yeah, that one's a whole band, and like that ending section has some nice big production on it and stuff. So it was definitely a fun experience recording that with some really good musicians. I got Andrew Cowett playing drums on that. He's a local guy, and I got Eric Von Geldern playing bass on that one, and then the three of us did a bunch of overdubs and cool fun stuff. So
That's cool. Yeah, I've heard some of your stuff with over at Hollis Hills, and you have some shows coming up with those guys, or some different shows.
So I got a duo acoustic gig coming up out in Needham, so it's far from us, but the internet goes all over the place.
Yeah.
On July 30th, that's a Thursday night, and it's a Hearth Pizzeria, and I play with another acoustic guitar player. He plays nylon string, and we've been really experimenting with harmonies and having fun singing together, and so that's July 30th, and then I'm solo over at Neshoba Club in Air.
Okay.
They do Wednesday night live music, patio music, and
That's
so that's
cool.
Wednesday night, August 5th. So,
That's awesome.
and I got some band stuff coming at Hollis Hills at the end of the season.
That's cool. Yeah. So I forget how we crossed paths. I think different gigs here and there. But you're also a teacher, right?
Yeah,
And,
I teach over at
yeah.
Monty Tech, and we've ended up sharing some students at times.
Yeah. You don't specifically teach music, but you have a music class or something. A
So
club.
I teach history, and one of my history classes involves a lot of music and the connection between history and music. But then after school, I run a music club just to. Monty Tech doesn't have like a school band, so it just kind of gives kids a space to come and play. And we've got guitar players and bass players and ukulele players, and we had a flute player come in, and we just hang out and jam and talk music. And
That's awesome. I'm sure it helps a lot of kids. I mean, I've probably shared on here before that for me, I remember being in school that age that I wasn't one of the really smart kids, and I wasn't really good in sports. So to find music was really, for me it was a really, it gave me some type of identity, I suppose.
yeah, definitely. There's that group of kids that's like looking for a place. And,
Yeah.
we've got some good kids down there that come and hang out, and some good players. Like COVID did a lot of bad stuff for our society, but there were a lot of kids that sat in their rooms with a guitar and got really good at it. And, that was cool.
Yeah, and I guess we somewhat streamlined the online lessons or classes, but still, it's much better in person, I think.
Definitely. I wouldn't want to go back to that online learning.
I do a few still online,
Yeah.
here and there. The advantage is I can, have someone that can't get out, or if they're in a different location, they don't seem to have gotten that the whole latency thing, so you can't actually jam with a person online.
We're not quite there yet.
It doesn't seem to work too well. I mean, I suppose you can send files back and forth. Seems to work all right. But yeah, all this, it's hard to keep up with all the AI they're talking about. But, I'll use whatever I can find. So it doesn't matter to me. I know some people say they're avoiding it, but probably when they first invented the wheel, there were people, we're fine with our sleds, You new kids use your wheels.
Well, I remember when Google became really prominent, and education was very scared. We were nervous that, search engines and being able to cut and paste was going to take over for the brain. But I think that people still like to learn, and I think people still like to know stuff.
Yeah, I do too, and I think as far as the music and the arts, which is mostly what I teach, is that probably the hardest thing to teach in any art form is how do you convey emotion. And that's one thing I don't think right now the computers can do for us. Like B.B. King could say more with a couple of notes than. Steve Vai is playing. I love Steve Vai. Hope you're not listening.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. That emotion you can put in just a couple of notes is not. I don't know if I could program my computer to do that. And I remember when I first got to music school in the 90s, I was an older student, but a lot of the drummers were threatened because their drum machines were getting quite popular. I guess Roland had a pretty popular one, and then Elise's and a couple of others. But what better person to program a drum machine than a drummer, because I don't really quite, I can do, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, but that's about it.
Well, and as a songwriter, I use Logic, and the drummers in Logic for a songwriter, it just is so nice to not play with a click, but to play with something that sounds like drums. But then, of course, when the song's ready, I prefer the sound of real drums
and the kind of the communication I think that's going on. I think with live jazz especially, we have some stuff going on, especially people that you've played with a good amount. I play with a piano player a good amount, Emily, and we kind of know what each other's going to do without I know when her solo's finished, I know when mine's finished, and so we're not jumping on top of each other. We're like, especially if you have two rhythm. I don't know if you play with piano players very much, but you can't both comp at the same time.
Right.
So it's just a matter of understanding, I think that, it's the same as sitting here talking, so we're not talking at the same time, It's like
Yeah, and music has always been like that kind of form of communication, like between the musicians and between the music and the listener. It's a really cool quote from Paul Simon that this made me think of. Emotion and communication is that the listener actually is the one that completes the song. You can write whatever you want and whatever notes you want, but the listener's reaction to it is what is the finish.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good. I'll try to remember it. So for you, I mean, I'm interested, and probably our listeners too. The whole songwriting thing. Do you like wake up and these songs are in your head, or do you like have to put effort in? Do you write the music first, or because for me it's been different. Sometimes I'll put on Band in a Box or something, and I'll just play, or I'll come up with a chord progression, and I'll program it into Logic or something, and then I'll start playing a melody. Or sometimes I come up with a melody in my head, and then I write some chords to accompany that, and beats, and try some different stuff. But there's probably, I would say, about 95% of mine gets deleted because I'm never happy with it.
Yeah. And so early on, I would always start with just sitting with the guitar playing and humming and making syllables and that kind of thing, and then let it evolve into a song. And the more I did it, the more I thought about it. Like, it's work. Stephen King said, "Writers write." So
That's
if you're gonna write songs, then you sit down. And sometimes I try and build from the melody back, and other times from, my just sitting with the acoustic. I think one of my favorite songs that I've written, I actually wrote the beginning started with a drum beat that I really liked, and my rudimentary drum playing turned into something.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So it's kind of all over the place, and I think wherever.
Do you want to play? Do you want to play that one?
Well, that one is definitely a.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, that one's definitely like a band.
Oh yeah. So check that one out online on.
That one's called Question, and
Question.
Question. Yeah, that started with a drum beat, and.
So if people just do a search, Keith McLinden.
Yeah, so Keith McLinden Project is where you'll find some of the band stuff, and some of my solo stuff is on just Keith McLinden, and that one I think is under just Keith McLinden.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
I'm interested. Mostly I write instrumental jazz. I have played on other people's stuff. They would just as a hired gun or something to play. On people's records, but so it interests me to understand this whole writing process.
Yeah, lately, so I've now that I've been working on Logic for a while. I probably have 2 albums worth of stuff like that is unfinished. It needs to be crafted and that kind of thing, and that's part of the songwriting process too. And I've got a few instrumentals that are sitting there, and it's like, well, where does this go? Where piecing it together and coming up with that final arrangement is, and sometimes sitting by myself with the computer and a guitar and a bass. It ends up just kind of flowing all over the place and doesn't get a direction. I miss to some extent the old days when we, would have band practice 3 nights a week and you'd come in and you'd shape the songs together. But, as you get older, that gets harder and harder to schedule.
Yeah, it does. And finding people that are willing to make that commitment, it seems like. I mean, for me, it was fairly easy when I was at Berkeley because everybody was there to play. We had access to these studios and practice rooms, and it was pretty constant. But as I've come out this way, it's a lot of more. There seems to be a lot of cover bands that want me to, or they want you to play exactly like the record, and I've done that, and I'm just not into it. It's not my cup of tea, and I know people make a really good living, and that is quite a skill to be able to do that, to play the solos note for note, and to get the the tone. They usually have a whole thing on pedals and stuff to get the right the effects and stuff to sound like whoever they're emulating.
Yeah, and I've always tried to approach covers with, well, let's play it the way we play it, otherwise put it on the record.
That's what the way I feel too. But and nothing against these people who do the cover band, because I'm sure they make a lot more money than me, because my jazz gigs, it's like
well, and it makes people happy,
Yeah.
like you go see one of those bands and they're doing all the parts that people know, and it's live, and you get that energy live, and people get excited to hear those parts, and so you can say, oh, it's not as artistic, but it's bringing people joy, and that's kind of what music's supposed to do.
We hope so. Yeah. I like that about jazz, blues, and rock, that it's, when I look at the audience, it's all ages, all races, it doesn't matter, any of that stuff. That's why I think music is a necessity to overcome these other boundaries that we have in politics and all this stuff that goes on. That music, it doesn't seem to, like, if I'm auditioning a bass player, my last concern is the race, gender, color. I want to know if our styles are gonna click together. How's this gonna go? So I think that maybe other people could learn something from that. I would hope to, because I always try to relate stuff to music for me, but I think the average audience who doesn't play, they relate music to life. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's sounding. And how did you get started? Did you formally study music? Did you take guitar lessons?
So no, well, not initially. Initially, I kind of got started with my parents' record collection and a pair of headphones, and I said,
what kind of music were they into?
Well, they had great taste in music. So we were everywhere from Frank Zappa in my father's collection to more Beatles stuff, and Jethro Tull in my mother's collection, and kind of bringing all those classic rock things together, and it just made I want to make those noises. I sought out a guitar, and I sang musical theater in high school and college, and then I got into a band with some guys that are still playing around locally, Bobby Belanger, Jay Graham, and when I got into that band as a singer, I was like, oh, these guys can really play. I better take guitar more seriously, and that's when I buckled down a little bit. I studied a little bit of jazz with Rich Falco, who was over at WPI, and kind of caught up with those guys as much as I could, guitar-wise, and and then here I am.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool that you grew up with those. It interests me because I kind of had a double generation gap. My father was in his 40s when I was born. My mother was quite a bit younger. So my father had, and I didn't think it influenced me that much, but now looking at my life, it must have, because he had all these Nat King Cole, Benny Goodman, Duke Ellington stuff, and I would sit with those records, as a kid, and then my mother turned me on to the Beatles. I can remember she brought home the 45 with "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and I saw her standing there. And we, even back then, we were little kids. We would get out the brooms, pretend like they were guitars, pots and pans for, because I had brothers and sisters. We were all close in age, but so I think what you're exposed to does somewhat influence the style you are now, and. My master's is education, and I was doing a lot of research. Because even those classes I would relate it all to music. So they say, like, singing to your kids if you can't sing very well, that they're not hearing the proper pitches, or we grew up with, like, our grandparents' pianos that were always way out of tune, so you don't properly hear the intervals,
So that's the excuse I'll start using for my ear not always being great. It was my grandmother's piano. Yeah.
Well, I think I've met some people who do have perfect pitch, but I think it's more of a curse, because I think it really bothers them to hear, like, bands that aren't quite in tune, or pianos that are slightly out.
Well,
I have one student that's handicapped, and she has perfect pitch. I'll see her hold her ears sometimes, like it's like
like it's painful.
Yeah. It's like,
well, I wonder with, auto-tune and, being able to go back to albums and fix everything so that it's perfect, are we in the future going to not be able to handle albums made in the 70s that are not perfect and they go flat on this part, or are we going to enjoy that a lot more because it's much more human and much more natural?
I hope it continues, and that they don't alter it too much. There's something to be said for the like, especially the old blues and stuff. The rawness of that and some of the with throwing a measure of 5 here, being 4/4. It's like they made it work. So to alter all that, I think would lose a lot of our, as far as music history and analyzing that. But we're at 23 minutes and 30 seconds. You want to do another song? You have another song you would like to do, or you want to play some blues or something?
Yeah, let's play some blues together and see what happens.
Yeah, what key you like?
I like E.
E, all
Gives
right.
me that low note.
Horn players don't particularly like E. If you've ever played with horn players,